to any members of the public that are joining us virtually if you have any comments on this agenda item.
There appears to be no virtual members of the public who would like to comment on this agenda item.
And I understand we still have no members of the public here in person. So with that, there for no further comments, we'll move on to agenda item number 5. And that'll be our 2026 CCDA Executive Committee Action Plan. And for that, we'll turn that over to April, our Executive Director, April Dawson-Rawlings.
Thank you, Chair Commissioner Downey. This is April, and I just wanted to turn the Executive Committee's attention to some cyclical things that the Executive Committee is charged with that we'll be bringing before you over the next year. The first is be expecting a bylaws review. Yes, it's that time again. I had to do a double take that every 2 years, it's in our bylaws that we review our bylaws, and the Executive Committee is charged with that. So we will be at a future meeting. Staff will be working closely with you to identify any things that need to be changed in the bylaws or updated. And that dovetails perfectly with the strategic plan. The Executive Committee is also charged with ensuring that the strategic planning process is carried out. And we'll be hearing a lot more about that from our consultant in the coming minutes. So I won't take too much time with that. But those are going to be a large chunk of the Executive Committee's time over the next year that is a part of your purview. Also just want to do a little teaser for the next for the next full commission meeting is that we will be doing a deep dive into our legal portal, and that might give the Executive Committee some nuggets to discuss at one of your future subcommittee meetings. And so with that, I welcome any questions, and also to turn it back to Chair Commissioner Downey if there's other updates and discussions related to anything that I may not have mentioned that the committee would like to turn our attention to this year. Thank you.
Thank you, April. So are there any comments from members of the Executive Committee that are joining us virtually?
There appears to be no virtual commissioners who would like to comment on this agenda item.
Thank you. Are there any comments from members of the Executive Committee that are here in person on this agenda item? Hearing none, are there any comments from the members of the public that are joining us virtually on this agenda item?
There appears to be no virtual members of the public who would like to comment on this agenda item.
Thank you. And we still have no members of the public here in person. So we'll move on to agenda item number 6.
I apologize for interrupting, but the sound is completely faded out.
Is that from me specifically?
I can hear you now I can hear you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. Do you need me to repeat that?
I think I got it. I think we're good.
All right. So we're
Thank
moving
you.
on to agenda item number 6. And for that, it's our legislative bill reporting. And for that, I'd like to turn it over to our DGS legislative consultant, Viet Bo.
Thank you, Chair Commissioner and Commissioners. Good afternoon. For today's legislative reporting, I'll be going over some of the bills that we've been seeing last year and some new updates to the second year of our 2-year legislative session. And before I get into all of that, I just wanted to give you all a rundown of what the recent legislative deadlines we've been seeing the past couple of months, as well as an outlook into what the legislative deadlines will be looking in the upcoming months as well. So January 5th was when the legislature just reconvened, and now we're in our second year of our 2-year session. January 31st was the last day for 2-year bills to pass in the House of Origin. So this deadline will be particularly important for one of the bills that we've been tracking. And February 20th was the last days for bills to be introduced. We saw about 1,600 bills introduced, in the legislature, and we've gone through our initial review in our Office of Legislative Affairs to go over through all those 1,600 bills and have not yet found any new bills pertaining to CCDA. However, we will be monitoring those bills in case some new bills pop up. And going into the weeks ahead, May 1st is the last day for bills introduced in this second year session to pass the first House Policy Committee. And then May 15th is the last day for bills to be that are introduced in this second year session to pass their first House Fiscal Committee. And then now I'll be going over some of the bills that we've been tracking. So sure you all are quite familiar with these bills. First, we have right here SB 84. This is one of the three bills that are related to right to cure. And of course, it prohibits a construction-related accessibility claim for statutory damages from being initiated against a small business owner unless that small business owner has been served with a letter specifying each alleged violation and alleged violations have not been corrected within 120 days of service of the letter. Right now, this bill is still technically active. We haven't seen any movement on the bill as of yet, but because this bill has already reached the second House, it technically is still alive and could be revitalized if the author wishes to do so. And then the next bill we have for you is AB 395 Gabriel. So this bill is also technically still alive. It's also a 2-year bill, but it requires state agencies to make every reasonable effort to avoid conducting a meeting, conference, or other function on specified religious, cultural, or ancestral holidays. This bill, again, is a 2-year bill, and we haven't seen any movement quite yet on this, but it technically can be revitalized. And then the next bill I have for you is SB 470 Laird. So this bill extends and repeals the day authorizing conditions on which a state body may hold a meeting via teleconference to January 1st, 2030. So congratulations to us all. We can still meet virtually until January 1st, 2030, because the governor has signed this bill on October 1st of last year. Okay, and then our next bill we have here is Assembly Bill 649 Lowenthal. This bill is also a bill similar to that first bill I mentioned, SB 84, that has some unique differences between this one and that one as well. But this bill creates the Small Business Right to Cure program, which provides small businesses a 6-year protection period to remediate most construction-related accessibility violations on their premises within 120 days. This bill, as well as the other aforementioned bill, SB 84, is also a 2-year bill and is technically still alive and could be revitalized if the author chooses to pursue this bill. And then we have, I think, 2 more bills for you. Yes, AB 766 Sharp-Collins. This bill would have required strategic plans developed by each state agency, department, office, or commission to reflect the use of data analysis and include inclusive practices to advance racial equity within the organization's programs, policies, and operations. This bill was actually vetoed by the governor on October 13th of last year. The governor shared in his veto message that they share the same goals of the author to advance racial equity within the administration and its plans. However, he had already signed an executive order to do to achieve this goal by creating a racial equity commission to advance inequities throughout the state. He also noted that in his veto message, there the bill includes unworkable deadlines and uncertainty around applicable entities, and it'll also lead to significant costs in this last year's budget. And then finally, we have AB 780 by Assemblymember Castillo. So I mentioned that January 31st was the last day for bills that were introduced in the first house to pass the first house. And because of that deadline, this bill effectively is dead for this year, so we won't be having to worry about this bill at all. But this bill reflects the same provisions as the first bill that I mentioned, SB 84. And that's all I have for you today, and then I'm happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you so much for that legislative bill report. Do we have any comments from members of the Executive Commission that are committee that are joining us virtually?
There appears to be no virtual commissioners who would like to comment on this agenda item.
Thank you. Yeah, resisting the urge to comment about virtual commissioners. And do we have any comments from members of the Executive Committee that are here in person? Hearing none, are there any comments from members of the public on this agenda item that are joining us virtually?
There appears to be no virtual members of the public who would like to comment on this agenda item.
All right, thank you, Brendan. And we have no members of the public that have joined us. So with that, we'll move on. Actually, first, I'd like to thank you, Viet Vote, for sharing that legislative bill report. So thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to agenda item number 7, our Executive Director report. And for that, of course, we hand it over to our Executive Director, April Dawson-Rawlings.
Thank you, Chair Commissioner Downey. This is April, and in the interest of time and to make sure that our consultants have enough time allotted for their report, I'm going to be a little more brief than I usually am, which some of you may be grateful for, and it won't offend me. But if you have any questions about what I am going to briefly cover or what I have not covered, or questions about what's in your packet, please feel free to ask me. I just wanted to share that Commissioner Dr. Profatza and Commissioner Shapiro were both reappointed by the governor for another 3-year term on the commission, and they are awaiting their Senate confirmation hearing. So congratulations to both of you. I also would like to welcome, we have 2 staff members that joined us since our last commission meeting, Roy Rodriguez, who is our marketing and outreach analyst, and Elias Williams, who is our disability access technician. Welcome, both of you. We're really excited to have you as part of our team. In terms of our financial review, I'm going to give you sort of the quick and dirty version. And if you have questions, I can certainly do my best to answer them or check with our finance team outside of the meeting and then bring it back to a future meeting. Our total budget authority for CCDA for our Disability Access Fund, that's our main fund, is $1,646,000. Of that, for personal services, that's our staff salaries and benefits and things like that, our total budget authority is $735,000. And year to date, we have spent, for the second quarter financials, $317,648. And that includes expenditures and also what we have encumbered to spend. Operations, our budget authority is $911,000. And year to date, as of quarter 2 close, we have spent $333,592. And I apologize, I failed to write down our high frequency litigation fund spending. I know I have it here in the packet, but I didn't write it in my quick notes, and I will do that next time. I wanted to quickly share that we have 2 two events coming up. Our first is our Commission to Community event, which will feature Kern County voices, and that will be the day after our full commission meeting. So it will take place on March 26, 2026 from 10 to 12 at the Bakersfield Marriott. We will be having our very own Ida Claire, the state architect and CCDA commissioner on the panel, as well as myself. We will be graciously chaired by Commissioner Dillard. And we will also have representatives from the Kern County Veterans Chamber of Commerce and the Kern County Center for Independent Living, as well as hearing from some consumer voices. In an effort for accessibility, I just want to share that on the screen are a Spanish language flyer on the right and an English language flyer on the left, and it says 2026 CCDA Commission to Community Event Kern County, and just details that I just verbally shared, and then a QR code and a link to register. And we're really excited to have that, and please share this with your networks. I also would like to share that Pacific ADA and CCDA will be launching our next Lunch and Learn webinar series. Our first one will take place on April 14th from 12 to 1 p.m. Our second one will take place on July 15th from 12 to 1 p.m. And our third webinar will take place on October 7th from 12 to 1 p.m. And each of those will have a different geographic as well as violation focus. So for our first webinar, we'll be focusing on Los Angeles County and talking about over the last couple of years, the trends that we're seeing in Los Angeles County as far as the violation categories. And so that we can provide training to speak to those categories and what we can learn from that. I am going to skip my usual CCDA biannual and quarterly data. It is in your packet. Happy to answer questions. Part of the reason why I'm doing that, not just in the interest of time, but also because there will be a deep dive that I alluded to earlier by our very own Abigail Ridge at our next full commission meeting, where we will take a deep dive into our data and into our portal that you've all been waiting for. And so with that, I will turn it back to Chair Commissioner Downey. Happy to answer any questions that you may have about what I've shared.
For that report, this is Chair Commissioner Downey. So with that, I'll turn it over to see if there are any comments from members of the executive committee that are joining us virtually.
There appears to be no virtual commissioners who would like to comment on this agenda item.
Okay, thank you. This is Chair Commissioner Downey again. Are there any members of the executive committee that are here in person that would like to comment on this agenda item?
This is Commissioner Littlebridge. April, I'm just out of curiosity, the other two lunch and learns, are there geographic locations that are going to be spotlighted for those yet?
Yes, and we're finalizing some of them, but the goal is to revisit prior places where we've had commission to community events, and to revisit those.
Thank you.
This is Commissioner Profazza. April, in the past, it's come up a couple of times that grocery aisles are blocked, especially for people with access needs, people who are using wheelchairs. And the question becomes, how do we take that topic and that concern and add it to one of these webinar topics so that there's that focus and the invitation to individual companies that provide those kinds of services? How do we get that on the agenda?
Yes, and so one of the topics that continues to trend is retail stores and the category that would include access aisles, and so that will be included in either one or several of these webinars. And so retail stores, also things like, maintaining accessible features, exterior passive travel, parking, those are the big ones that we will cover in our Lunch and Learn series. And it'll include a technical presentation by the Pacific ADA Center, as well as a discussion about how to address that.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This is Chair Commissioner Downey. Are there any other comments from members of the executive committee on this agenda item that are here in person? Hearing none, are there any comments from the public on this agenda item? Members of the public that are joining us virtually?
There appears to be no virtual members of the public who would like to comment on this agenda item.
Thank you. And as we have no members of the public here in person, we'll move on to agenda item number 8, I believe. And that'll be agenda item about our strategic goal development. And for that, we'll turn it over to our Executive Director, April Dawson-Rawlings, for the strategic goal development discussion.
Thank you, Chair Commissioner Downey. This is April, and I am pleased to introduce representatives from CPS HR who will be here today to talk with all of us about what we've gleaned so far from the summits, as well as the individual commissioner interviews, and to talk a little bit about how the process is shaping up and next steps. I want to very quickly introduce Sarah Rondazzo, who is the Organizational Strategy Unit Manager at CPS HR. Her biography is in your packet, but I'll summarize that she holds a master's in psychology with a focus on international disaster and global mental health from the University of Denver, and a bachelor's degree in psychology and education from Skidmore College. And she brings over 20 years of specialized consulting experience in business transformation, organizational strategy, and stakeholder engagement within the public sector. And she has vast expertise spanning between strategic planning, modernization, and performance management. And she has worked with a variety of organizations, including government agencies and nonprofits. I also want to introduce Christy Clay, who is the Senior Project Consultant with CPS HR Consulting. Ms. Clay is a business strategist and inspired problem solver who facilitates real results. She has strong insights and fortitude that have helped many organizations embrace change, improve culture, and drive performance. And for the past 15 years, her focus has been helping organizations, teams, and individuals work smarter versus harder as they navigate growth and change. And I just want to say that it's been a pleasure working with both of them and their team. And I've really enjoyed, hearing about how we're going to be, setting our direction for the next 5 years as an organization. And it's great to have CPS HR as our third party what's the right word? Our third party neutral consultant in this process, and have a team with all of you. So with that, I will turn it to our guest speakers today.
Thank you, April. This is Sarah Randazzo speaking. It's a pleasure to meet you all. You've met Christy and my colleague Anne, and so this is the first time I'm meeting several of you. In a minute, I'm going to share my screen and we'll go through our agenda, some group norms, and then we'll get into the body of our discussion today. Before I do that, I did want to take a note of the time, and I know this meeting is intended to end at 3 p.m. And I wanted to confirm with you, Chair Commissioner Downey, how much time you will need to close out the meeting so we can pace the conversation accordingly.
Chair Commissioner Downey, let me get a preview of things here. It'll take me a second, not quite. Let's okay. Yeah. So as long as we preserve 3 minutes or so, we'll be fine.
Okay. Thank you very much. This is Sarah. So now with that said, I am going to share my screen. And are you all able to see the PowerPoint that has California Commission on Disability Access? If you are, please say yes, as I'm not able to see you right now.
We're not seeing it just yet.
Okay. How about now?
Yes.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. First of all, I just want to say that it has been an honor and a privilege to work with April and Abigail, as well as facilitate both the business community and disability community summits this past week. In terms of our agenda for today, I'm going to go through. Christy is going to recap what has been done so far, progress to date, the themes that we have heard from you all, as well as the business community and the disability community in the meetings that we facilitated. The bulk of our discussion, we want to allocate about at least 25 minutes to really talk through not only the strategic landscape and review the SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that we've aggregated through this process so far, but really start to define what that 5-year target looks like for the commission. Recognizing that this is a meaty discussion and we have 25 minutes allocated for today's conversation, this is to start to get the commission in a direction, the executive committee in a general direction. We don't want to focus on wordsmithing or tweaking today. We'll get your general feedback around what that 5-year target, that North Star that you want to see yourselves when you read the press conference or the article in the Be what it has said the commission has accomplished in 5 years. We will then bring those themes to the full commission meeting later in March and further refine and develop the priorities that will support that target. So today is really about enabling a conversation to start for the executive committee to hone in on that 5-year target. We'd love to hear from you all what is missing, what you feel like needs emphasis that maybe hasn't been covered in the discussion today. And then finally, we'll talk about next steps to finalize the strategic plan by the end of June. In terms of group norms, you all have your protocols that you typically follow, which very much aligns to this conversation. A few things we want to reinforce, and particularly since some commissioners are in one room together and we're not able to see if one particular person raises their hand. But again, being present, removing, not using technology, open and honest and respectful. We find with strategic plans, it is valuable and insightful to have differences of opinion. And the goal of that 5-year target is to find in that Venn diagram, that little area that overlaps that people are working towards. Now, the one is to stay on topic. We have a limited amount of time, and so we really want to stay focused on refreshing and evaluating the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and how those inform what we want to focus on over the next 5 years. Finally, active listening. This is an opportunity to listen to each other, hear things that you may have not heard before, think about things differently, to really come up with something that you all are supportive of. And then finally, share the floor. We want to be able to hear from as many of the commissioners as possible and ensure that you're bought into this 5-year target and this planning process. With that in mind, I will turn it over to Christy to talk about the work to date and some of the themes that we've heard from these various sessions.
Thank you, Sarah. This is Christy Clay. And some of you, some of the commissioners I was able to talk with, others have spoken with our colleague Ann Patton. But what I want to do right now is kind of share the key themes that emerged from all of our conversations and interactions. So this is going to be commissioner interviews and then the business community summit and the disability community summit. And I've got 5 of those. The first of which is fear of litigation as the primary barrier to compliance. So again, just the reinforcement that business owners fear that engaging in the compliance process, at times even obtaining a CASP inspection, may increase their exposure to lawsuits rather than reduce it. And also just that there have been some legislative proposals to consider making CASP reports publicly accessible. And this is kind of moving us towards that amplified fear and is perceived as undermining the intent and effectiveness of CCDA. So just kind of that understanding that was probably always there, but we just got some real granular detail and heard from different vantage points on that fear of litigation as the primary barrier. The second theme is the need for simple, more accessible communication and resources. As you guys know, the legislative work you do and all that, there is some dense information and data in there. So, especially from the business community, looking for, plain language, digestible materials that kind of simplify compliance requirements. They spoke to concise, single topic fact sheets, quick reference guides, did you know? So really looking at all this compliance information and legislation through this more practical lens and layman's terms. Also looking for more toolkits in the digital space. And there was a strong interest, again, this speaks to the simplicity with a checklist, a step-by-step guide, templates, and video content. So taking this fairly complex topic and legislation and simplifying it to be more easily understood and digested. The third theme is visibility of CCDA and awareness gaps. So this speaks to that despite there being these tools and these resources and these toolkits that have been carefully put together, there's a fair amount of people who just don't know that they exist, and if they exist, where to find them. So want to increase that awareness and understanding. There was a lack of awareness around the commissioners and their role and how they facilitate the mission of CCDA. And then one kind of last bullet point on this is what was referred to as information blindness, which really means people don't seek the resources they need until they face a problem. So sometimes trying to educate them when it's just not front of mind or top of mind for any reason is just kind of a tough way to get their attention. The fourth key theme is what we'll call expanding reach through new partnerships. So it was brought up to, are there ways that we can reach other audiences like attorneys or real estate professionals? And then also, are there ways that we can reach more people through partnerships, either with city and county advisory boards, immigrant business groups? It could be engaging trade associations such as ICSC, which is retail shopping centers, BOMA, which is in that commercial real estate property management space, and CREW, which is also commercial real estate women. So in those cases, we could reach greater audiences instead of talking to people in smaller groups. And finally, under expanding reach through new partnerships, again, just expanding our reach through leveraging distribution networks of existing partners and stakeholders. So of those current relationships, what relationships do they have that they could continue to distribute the information, tools, and resources from CCDA? And the final key theme is that there was real mutual empathy between communities. So this was brought forth, quite clearly and beautifully when we had the business community summit and then the disability community summit, and just really the understanding of the challenges of each other's situation. Really, this is that most people are trying to do the right thing and want to do the right thing. And in these ways that like small improvements can make a big difference. And so there was a lot of care for just the whole mission, and that both parties also don't want to see less legislation. There was also just great respect between the commission members and the staff of CCDA. So a lot of care and empathy in these and between these communities. So that is kind of what the key themes that emerged. I'm not going to speak to the patterns until after the SWOT, and it'll make sense at that time while I'm doing that. So
This
go
is
ahead, Sarah.
I apologize for interrupting. I wanted to let the commissioners know that in the email that was sent out this morning, the executive committee, that item 8D is an executive summary of what Christy reviewed. So if you would like to see it visually and look at farther detail, there's an executive summary there. And then, when you review the SWOT analysis in a moment, document 8F will be a further detail of what you're about to discuss.
And this is April. This is just a reminder to describe any images. So far, there haven't been any images. It's just the CPSHR logo and the verbiage that Christy is sharing.
Thank you, April. This is Sarah. In a moment, I'm going to change the screen and there will be an image of the high-level SWOT findings.
All right, next slide, Sarah. All right, so on this slide, we visually have a box with bullet points of initially here the strengths. Again, as Sarah mentioned, there is a written report for more detail, but we just wanted to give you kind of that, 20,000 feet and above, and it serves as a good context going into the conversation to be looking at the 5-year target. So the strengths include strong leadership and staff capacity. There was just a lot of great attributes that were brought forth for the leadership and staff: capable, committed, responsive, and the strongest it has been in years. So they felt that this was a good time to be doing strategic plan from that vantage point. The second strength is a committed, diverse, and knowledgeable commission. So currently the commissioners bring deep expertise, lived experience, and a strong shared commitment to the CCDA mission. And then also there has been some, it says recent turnover, right? That the commission chairs will turn over at times, but in that has become new energy, some broader perspectives, and some improved diversity. And the third strength is a clear and unique mission. That CCDA is really a unique model nationally, and out there doing, important work and really trying to align these communities and bridge the gap to increase accessibility. The fourth strength is credibility and accessibility and engagement. So there has been great community outreach and stakeholder engagement, and the commission meetings are seen as high quality and valuable. And the final strength that we will mention is financial assets to leverage. So this speaks to the high frequency litigant funds, which are additional funds beyond just the general funds that can be used to promote disability access. And so it increases that capacity to execute on strategic ideas with those additional dollars. So I'm going to move on to, from the SWOTs, the strengths. Now we're going to go to the weaknesses. We've put up another image. It is a box with text in it with the bullets of the weaknesses that I will mention. So the first one is limited visibility and understanding of CCDA. There just still is a fair amount of the population that is unfamiliar with CCDA. The commissioners are, and their role is not always well known. And that also at times CCDA's name creates expectations that exceed its actual scope. And that can at times lead to confusion or frustration. The second weakness is gaps in legislative engagement. So just these limited relationships with legislators and their minimal involvement in allowing CCDA to influence or shape disability-related legislation. The commissioners who are appointed are perceived as under-engaged, and CCDA is often not consulted before legislation is drafted. So that speaks to the gaps in legislative engagement. The third bullet under weaknesses is community and education challenges. This again kind of speaks to that information blindness, right? That they're just not looking for the information unless they have a need around it. That materials can be perceived as too technical or complex, or maybe not tailored to their specific issues. And then communication just can be inconsistent across the regions of California, and at times a Sacramento-centric focus. So the fourth weakness is data and capacity limitations. Just sometimes, at times, the concerns about the accuracy of the data that is either provided to CCDA or some of the data that CCDA gets and does the analysis of. And that at times there is limited in-house technical expertise within the staff of CCDA, not the commission, to analyze lawsuits. And the fifth and final weakness is operational inefficiencies. People spoke that was mostly due to past turnover of staff at CCDA that slowed momentum and continuity. That was kind of listed as a strength now, the current staff. And that at times there was limited onboarding or baseline ADA training for new commissioners. All right, Sarah, if you could. So we are on a new slide now and have brought up an image, a text box for the opportunities within this SWOT. So the first opportunity is to expand education and outreach impact. So that would be to develop simpler audience-specific messages and toolkits, again, creating them in the layman's guidance in terms of videos, checklists, and then multi-languages and multilingual materials. And to also just increase visibility of the commission programming through recordings, webinars, and broader marketing. The second opportunity is to strengthen that legislative advisory role. So just to be able to have more opportunity to educate, to inform, and to potentially influence. The third opportunity is to leverage data and targeted interventions. So to really, as is available, to track outreach outcomes, toolkits, CASP inspections, those type of things. And to focus on high impact regions. So where there is more population density, to focus on those areas. The fourth bullet is to build partnerships and ambassadors. So this was also listed. This is again to engage attorneys, real estate professionals, the Chamber of Commerce, even targeted business sectors like the women's business sector, Black or LGBTQIA, and business chambers. And that would again be to expand the reach. We've got with major upcoming events with the opportunities is the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics and other large scale events, and how you guys can use this these large scale events to elevate public awareness and proactive compliance. And the final opportunity is innovative incentives and models. So it was brought up, I think, in all forums for subsidized CASP inspections, if that is an opportunity, and to also look at and learn from other public health models about how to influence behavior. And so finally, with the SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, we will come to the threats. The first of which is just this climate of fear and litigation, right? And so these high frequency and frivolous lawsuits do continue to perpetuate fear, disengagement, and mistrust, and can cause people to avoid CCDA just out of concern that an engagement would signal noncompliance. The second is the external economic and social pressures. So there's just a lot of competing crises at this time. There's fires, there's labor shortages, tariffs, housing instability. So there just is a lot of competing priorities and concerns across the state. And sometimes that can overshadow compliance and education efforts. The third threat is policy and scope constraints that, again, CCDA is unable to limit lawsuits, enforce compliance, or generate revenue. And so that in some ways restricts its influence. And again, just that misalignment between the public's perception of what CCDA can do and their actual scope. The fourth threat is resource limitations. So just budget constraints that limit the ability to scale, to do things more frequently and do more forums and outreach. And then a dependence on a limited staff can make it hard to respond as rapidly as they would like. And the final threat is perception and representation risks. So just the perception among some that either stakeholders or the commission is insular or architect heavy, or disengagement of younger professionals or non-architect voices if they don't feel that there is a diversity of perspectives. So that is the overview of the SWOT. I'm going to pause for a moment for any comments, questions. Sarah mentioned in the agenda, do you see anything that's missing? Again, my guess is that a lot of this is more confirming things, but any comments that anyone wants to share?
Thank you. This is Chair Commissioner Downey. Before I open it up to others, I wanted to first make a comment or raise a question about, I think, perhaps the first item that was brought up, which was fear of litigation as a result of getting having a certified access specialist report, a CAS report. And I'm curious, and perhaps it would be captured later, and when you talked about in some of our activities being about data, I'm curious if there's anything in our data collection or any data out there to validate, verify, or refute that concern. If not, it would seem that getting that data to better position it, because it's a critical thing. The willingness for small business owners to have a CAS report, especially at the time of signing a lease, is so vital to this whole endeavor, that if there's a fear of doing it, that it would trigger litigation, that's obviously counterproductive. And sort of developing some strategy and some guidance, some strategies around that would seem to be really critical. So I just wanted to put that on there as sort of somehow another better forming and articulating that fear. With that, I'll open it up to see if there are any other comments from members of the executive committee that are joining us virtually.
Thank you, Chair Commissioner Downey. If I may, I would like to add a thought, adding on to what you just asked about, although this is anecdotal rather than statistical. I have encountered two instances, and I've encountered two situations multiple times each situation. One situation, and it comes to the issue of the legislation that was passed and the legislation that's being proposed. Occasionally, I run into a situation where a landlord, knowing that they have a disclosure requirement and concerned about whether or not they will have the capital available to address issues immediately as opposed to over time, will be reluctant to obtain a CAS report because they are required to disclose it to the tenant, and they're required to, once they've disclosed it, they are also concerned that high frequency litigants will find out that they have either violations that they're correcting or that there are issues that they're going to do half of this year, half of next year. And when that information gets out, the high frequency litigant will come and sue them to get money for corrections they are actually going to do, although they haven't yet done them or they may not be doing them immediately. So the disclosure requirement for some persons has created a fear that the word gets out and then they will get sued. Whether that's good or not, I'm not commenting. I mean, obviously, we want them to get the report and we want them to fix everything in it, but it does go to the concern. There's also the concern, I think, was mentioned earlier about the publicity of the report, whether or not the report will be limited to the tenant, whether it will go out into the world, and then they're going to have 6 people who never would have visited their center, but now they're going to come because they know that they can do that and move forward. So unfortunately for the landlords and then for some of the tenants, the issues on getting sued for doing it goes to the issue of who do they have to tell and will they get sued before they can fix it? Again, I don't offer a value judgment on whether that's a good reason or a bad reason, but just some thoughts on comments I have heard made about why there is this reluctance and what we can do, perhaps in addressing those concerns. That would be something I would like to see us build into a strategic plan. Thank you.
Yeah. Chair Commissioner Downey, this is Abigail. Just before we go on to more comments, we still have our consultants that are doing their presentation. So these comments are pertaining right now to the SWOT analysis, and then following the presentation of our consultant, we can open up to public comment.
Okay, thank you. I was curious about that, but so are there any other comments?
This is Commissioner Prefazza adding on to what Commissioner Downey and Commissioner Shapiro commented upon. I was under the understanding that having a CASP review offers some protections in terms of then making corrections to the business owner. So I'm wondering, what is the N that we're talking about, the number of individuals who are voicing these fears of retaliation? Are we talking about 10 people? Are we talking about 100 people? I'd be curious to know what the N is. That would be very helpful. Thank you.
There are no further comments. As Chair Commissioner Downey, I'll turn it back over to the consultants.
Thank you. And this is Sarah speaking. As we transition and talk about the 5-year target, we've noted down this question around what is the N, is this perception? Because perception is reality for people on the receiving end. And so the question is doing further investigation. And so when we get into defining the goals for the strategic plan, this is absolutely something that we can revisit in our follow-up conversation as part of the strategic planning process. With that in mind, with strategic planning, what we find is that the commission will have a number of priorities that you're focused on. But at the end of the day, what do those priorities ultimately roll up to? What is that North Star, or that point that if you are putting out the press release in 5 years, we'll say we achieved this. I will give you an example, and then I'm going to come back to this slide. Had the opportunity to work with the Super Bowl 50 host committee. Can't believe it was a little over 10 years ago. And one of the things that they did was, in defining their North Star, their 5-year target, was to make Super Bowl 50 the most giving, innovative, and sustainable Super Bowl in history. So they had specific strategic pillars around philanthropy, so being able to do fundraising, sustainability, economic impact, etc. This was the model, and all of their goals rolled up to this model. So we would pose the question to the commissioners: when you think about that 5-year target for CCDA, what is our Super Bowl win?
So we primarily share that Super Bowl as an example because sometimes it's easier to see with someone else's organization than your own right away. But again, what we're wanting to do is facilitate dialogue and hear from you all now. Now we're going to listen. What do you see as the North Star? What does success look like in 5 years? What does that article say? Here's how CCDA was a success.
If I could begin, this is Commissioner Prefazza. I would say that if there were deep awareness of the services, resources, including toolkits, all of the one-pagers that we've been talking about, the information, that there be one centralized area where that information would be available and that people within the business and disability communities would have a full awareness of the services and resources of the CCDA. Thank you.
This is Sarah. Thank you, Commissioner.
This is Commissioner Littlebridge. I think in terms of a press release in the year 2030, I think that if the press release said something along the lines of through CCDA's outreach and education efforts, the number of alleged violations were reduced 10% year over year. 10%, I'm throwing out a number. We'd have to talk about what would be a reasonable reduction. But to me, that would be something to really throw a party over.
Thank you, Commissioner. This is Sarah. We get very excited when we hear quantifiable North Stars.
As Chair Commissioner Downey, if I can make it into something that's quantifiable, thinking about being able to sort of show a similar level of increased reliance and use and taking advantage of certified access CAS reports, especially related to new leases, and then the execution of those CAS reports, not just getting a report, but executing on the guidance of that report.
This is Commissioner Dillard. I agree with my colleagues. For me, I could visualize a future where anything pertaining to accessibility, that individual, whether it's a politician, whether it's a store owner, whether it's a residential person, they would automatically think of us as a source. And that would be success for me. It's a focal point.
As Chair Commissioner Downey, I kind of like that. I like the idea of the state legislator having increased dialogue towards the goals, the charter of this commission, and better engagement and advising sort of conversation about legislation.
This is Commissioner Shapiro, building on what Chair Commissioner Downey and Commissioner Dillard just said. I agree with every goal and North Star that everyone has said so far. I would actually make, again, maybe a little quantifiable. I would see as a success a situation in which every new piece of legislation on the ADA, in the ADA arena or area, had a consultation with some commissioner or member of the staff of CCDA before it was introduced. I think that would, if we're going to go for the home run, every piece of legislation before it goes into the floor, having had a consult with us, would be a home run to me.
You can feel free to talk more than once if anything new comes up.
Mrs. Sarah, are there any other comments? Otherwise, we can continue forward. If any, yeah, I'll pause there.
Commissioner Profazza, what this triggered for me also is that there's an opportunity through the high litigation fund to actually use dollars within the communities to correct some of these deficiencies. And I would hope that one of the goals and the target, what do we call them? The North Star goals is to identify the numbers of dollars that have been expended and the types of corrections that were made in that process.
This is Commissioner Shapiro. I don't know that this one is quantifiable, but I would view as a win a noticeable, I don't know if it's measurable, change of perception for the public to view obtaining the report, not just getting the reports, which is what Chair Commissioner Downey said, but that they view getting the report as important, valuable, necessary, automatically do it as opposed to fearful of not doing it. Because with a change of perception, that could markedly change the number of people who participate, the number of violations that get corrected.
Mrs. Sarah, thank you, Commissioner. I will say we like to use the analogy that sometimes a strategic plan is like filling in a Mad Lib. If anyone remembers the Mad Libs, where you've got these different pieces to it. And so all of the comments that you all are saying right now, we're taking notes. We will work between now and the next meeting to put them in the place that they belong. So all of these comments, all of your reactions are welcomed at this point.
This is Commissioner Dillard again, and I'm kind of changing the subject a little bit. We talked about concerns, fears, threats, and weakness. And I understand and realize that in some cases, these are realities for some people. But part of me wonder, sometimes are we chasing a ghost? I mean, concerns could be a reality or it could be not a reality. Fears can be a reality or not a reality. So I'm a little bit, I won't say concerned, but I just think we have to be careful how we approach these things, because otherwise I think we're chasing things that might not be true.
This is Commissioner Shapiro. I agree with Commissioner Dillard that sometimes the rumor of a thought or the rumor of a concern may not, in fact, be a truthful vision of what's really going on. I don't know in the larger community. I do know, and of course, can't disclose who or when, but I do know that when clients express these concerns to me, they are, in fact, their concerns. I try my best to show them that ignoring the problem doesn't change the problem, and how vital it is for to get the information, know what the issues are, and put together a plan to, increase accessibility. So, is it a fear they have? I think that to take Commissioner Dillard's comments one step further, is it a fear they have based on nothing? Is it, that they're not really going to get sued, but they think that? Or is it a fear based on they have been sued or their friend had sued or something else like that? I think, though, that also goes to the changing of perception. If the fear doesn't have any basis, then one would hope that proper education and outreach could show that there are no legs to the fear. And that, I think, is also a very large part of our mission if we can achieve it. Thank you.
So I have one comment and then Sarah can kind of wrap up. I think as we spoke with all of you, as we present the SWOT analysis, we're not trying to solve for everything on there, right? But we are trying to get a really good context and good information. So as we go through this planning process, we're well informed. But I think Sarah and I have talked to you and Ann about that we're not trying to expand the scope, but really focus and filter what work is most important. And so the other thing I'd say before I hand it over to Sarah is that we did not have a lot of time to do that 5-year target, and some really awesome stuff emerged. And so I could tell from Sarah's expression too that I think we're going to be able to bring something quite powerful and concrete to the full commission that we'll work with April and Abigail on. So over to you, Sarah.
Thank you, Christy. This is Sarah. To Christy's point, you all have raised some incredibly valuable components around data and using data to inform the priorities of the commission. And as you think about those annual goals, having data be able to help define what are some of those common perceptions that people have, and then what are the numbers and the metrics behind those, if that is possible to access. With that said, we will, as a next step, take what you've shared today, organize it a little bit more, and work with April and Abigail in advance of the full commission. And in that session, we'll be sharing and looking at the mission and the vision and the draft 5-year target and some of the strategic priorities that we've even just heard from you all today, and being able to discuss that. We have more time allocated in that full commission meeting. Some of you, we will likely spend some time as a heads up, we will likely spend some time reviewing some of the things that you've heard today around the SWOT and some of the key takeaways so that the full commission has that. We also know that hearing things 7 times gives us new ways of thinking about things. So you'll likely hear some of the same things that you heard today at that full commission meeting. But we will spend more of the time talking about the 5-year target, the strategic pillars that roll up, and some of those goals. In terms of next steps, so as I mentioned, that is what we will be doing at the March 25th full commission meeting. In parallel, we just shared yesterday with April and Abigail, based on the feedback that you all have provided, a survey that will go out to the disability community and the business community, and really helping to hone in and understand what some of these priorities are and what some of those perceptions are versus realities. And so that survey will be going out in April, and Abigail will be sharing that likely next week. It will be distributed to some of the partners that the commission works with, and that survey will be open until April 3rd is the target, with the intent of getting at least 100 responses. So as I mentioned, while we won't have that data for the full commission meeting, we will have it for future commission meetings and as part of the topics as you hone in on strategic plan. We will be facilitating and joining subcommittee meetings to help hone in on the goals that align and roll up to the 5-year target, with the goal of having a finalized strategic plan by June 24th. And that is our presentation for today. Does any of the commissioners have any additional comments or questions? We have about 5 minutes left of the 3 minutes you that was needed.
This is Chair Commissioner Downey. I did have another comment that I wanted to get out there. One, and sort of talking about the ghost that Commissioner Dillard pointed out. That's sort of getting back to that question of data. But it also, at the same time, I was thinking about how the concern for CASP reports and the lack, no equivalent of that from the physical space into the digital space, and how a major initiative or major element we're to be tracking now is the access violations in the digital space. And perhaps it's an odd place to go, but I'm curious if there's something that we can do as a commission to identify that as a issue that might require some additional legislation, or at least some conversation about that, of how to deal with the lack of that comparable goal of the CASP report in digital space. It just seems like it's an increasingly important thing, and maybe something that we as a commission over the next 5 years would be a good goal for us to try to make some progress on that. Any other comments from members of the executive committee that are joining us virtually?
There appears to be no virtual commissioners who would like to comment on this agenda item.
Any further comments from members of the executive committee that are here in person?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Dillard. I'm not sure, and I guess this is more of a question. I interpret a lot of the comments that I read were from different categories. It could have been from commissioners. It could have been from someone from the community, from the business owners. You couldn't really tell. They were kind of all lumped together, I think. But I do like the idea that you voice you're going to go out to certain groups. And I'm wondering, should we get back maybe feedback from the groups versus lumping them all together so we know where the concerns, so to speak, are coming from? Do you understand what I'm saying?
This is Sarah. Yes, when we distribute the survey, there is the option for participants to self-identify, whether they identify as part of the business community, the disability community, or both. And so we will be able to segment the data in aggregate. The more responses we get, the more of a picture we'll get. And so I would encourage the commissioners to distribute the survey with networks, and we'll work with Abigail and April to support in whatever way CPSHR can. We've provided a link and a QR code and some email templates for you all to share.
And again, I'm assuming that what we received to date with the comments that we read, they were all lumped together. Is that correct?
This is Sarah. Correct. They're lumped together. There was a lot of common themes. I've facilitated strategic planning for commissions where it is wildly distinct what the different perspectives share. And I think one of the things that was just very moving, honestly, about this process was how much overlap there was and empathy for different people's experiences and perspectives.
This is Commissioner Prafazza. I did hear the comment that you were hoping for at least 100 survey responses. I would encourage us, if we could, to have a much broader expansiveness of the number. 100 in the scheme of what we're talking about seems too few to me. So I just want to encourage us as much as we can to have as broad a base of requests as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from members of the executive committee here in person or virtually? Hearing none, are there any comments from members of the public joining us virtually on this agenda item?
There appears to be no virtual members of the public who would like to comment.
All right, thank you. And we still have no members of the public here. So with that, I think we'll move on to agenda item number 9. And so with that, it's the future agenda items. So I'd like to open it up to members of the executive committee that are joining us virtually, if you have any suggestions for future agenda items.
There appears to be no virtual commissioners who would like to comment.
Thank you. Are there any comments from members of the executive committee that are here in person that would like to suggest future agenda items? Hearing none.
This is Commissioner Dillard. I'm just curious, because we do this every time we meet, do we have a list of items that have came up in the past? Or we have none? I'm not sure.
This is April. So I always take notes and look at the minutes, and that kind of helps staff generate the draft agendas that we review, like with Chair Commissioner Downey. But but kind of alluding to what I mentioned earlier is that we know that the bylaws will be on a future agenda item, and we know that the strategic plan. So those will be. But yes, we do track those.
This is Commissioner Lillibridge. I think that Chair Commissioner Downey has brought up a very good point with regards to website accessibility and how it's gaining more alleged violations on our top 10 list. And it would be good at some future either executive committee and or full commission meeting to have a presentation on what does it take to be certified to be a web developer, and do they have the certifications necessary as a CASP would have to make sure that the websites that they're developing, excuse me, have all the required components that are necessary to be compliant. I'm quite frankly dumb as a rock when it comes to what does it take to put a website together. I know what it takes to design a parking lot and accessible parking spaces and things like that, because that's my profession. But I'm very curious about that website, the website accessibility, and I think it would be a very worthy topic for us to have a very significant discussion about that.
Commissioner Prafazza, I would like to see a topic very specific to retail, aisleways, access, bring in business, retail businesses to talk about how they manage this issue. Our disability community to talk in great detail about the effects on their opportunities. And I would like to spend some time on this topic at a future meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Prafazza. Are there any further comments of potential future agenda items from members of the executive committee here in person or virtually? Hearing none, are there any comments from members of the public that would like to suggest some future agenda items?
There appears to be no virtual members of the public who would like to comment.
All right. Thank you. And before I move on to the next agenda item, I want to go backwards to thank our strategic plan consultants for joining us. If you're still on, thank you for your presentation and the conversation and the work you're doing. So with that, I'll move on to our next and final agenda item number 10. I could like to have a motion to adjourn.
Commissioner Shapiro moves to adjourn.
Thank you. Could I have a second?
Commissioner Lillibridge seconds.
Thank you. Brandon, could you lead us in a roll call vote?
I will now take a roll call vote. Chair Commissioner Downey.
Aye.
Commissioner Lillibridge.
Aye.
Commissioner Dr. Prafazza.
Aye.
Commissioner Shapiro.
Aye.
Commissioner Dillard.
Aye.
The votes have been counted and the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. One quick comment before we all exit, just so we know. I think perhaps when people are appearing virtually, it would be helpful to refer to them as commissioners appearing remotely or commissioners appearing virtually as opposed to virtual commissioners. After all, we don't want to be labeled by our characteristics now, do we?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.